Nice. Nice. How y'all doing today? Today's going to be a fun one. Creation is superior to the alternative. Well, the alternative would be something like naturalism, you know. People can hold different creationist views and try to go head to head with them, which I find more interesting, honestly, than a creation view versus none. But what we're dealing with today, nothing new under the sun, is materialism, physicalism, naturalism, atheism, secularism. Zero justification for reality the way it is. It just is, bro. It's just the way it is, bro. That's just the way it is. I forgot the name of that guy. Good piano player, though. Let me tell you what. Finished up your lentil soup? Yeah, I just had a little shake myself. The book on head haircut stream was hilarious. It sure was, Mella. I had a good time. Book haircut. What do we got going on? Okay, so I got a couple of things to view today. But I wanted to start with one of the main propositions of why a created world makes more sense. The first, maybe most essential, true dilemma is accidentalism versus intentionalism. It's either the case reality is completely accidental and everything within it is accidental, and the fact that it's intelligible, that the reality itself operates in a way that could be perceived, but not only that, has creatures that can intelligibly make sense of it independently. People often don't think about this, especially from the evolutionary view, which makes it completely insane, that the world itself is intelligible, operates a certain way according to the laws of logic. There's regularity of nature that's unjustified from that view. And then there are these creatures with this peculiar incidental capability. Incidental. To make sense of it. That's two independent things that are unrelated, by the way, from an accidental view. Now, forget about, I've been harping about evolution for weeks now. The fact that internally in the body, that the body itself in a holistic system operates with relations, but so does the universe itself. And this problem, philosophical problem, that the physicalist, the naturalist, the eternal universe believers can't make sense of. They can't justify it. And what that is that there's a set of particulars that have relationships in the way they operate, and they're perceivable, and they could be made sense of. So this multiplicity of components in the world are otherwise nominal and unrelated from the naturalist view. And yet, what we experience in the world is unity and multiplicity. We experience both. We experience particulars, and we experience and make sense of universals. We perceive an abstract metaphysical concept called reality out there, which is a collection of particulars, and it's conceivable. But from these nominalist views, these naturalistic views, where everything is just nominal, a brain is nominal, there's no universality of thinking, as we've expressed very aggressively in the last 2 weeks, that there's no purpose to thinking, there's no purpose or proper function to a brain or to anything else in the world. Everything is just nominally unfolding. It's just an incident. It's just an accident that things maintain these similar functions. Incidental. Another aspect that makes creation superior to non-creation is that the world itself is composed of materiality and immaterial. And I'm being, whimsical by saying composed, right? There's no place in the universe. There's no location. There's no coordinate system. There's no material matter that knowledge is made of, that the laws of logic are made of, that truth from a materialist view has no ontology that's physical. And yet, the atheist, the naturalist, the progressive, they affirm wholeheartedly, passionately even, that truth, that's not the truth. You need to abandon creation. This is crazy. This is Stone Age thinking. These are illiterate, sheep herder philosophy. We need to progress, they say. Progress towards what? And they're never consistent. If they were consistent, they'd say there's no such thing as progress. Some of them actually say there's no such thing as truth, which is a self-refuting claim. Some of them say, bite the bullet and say, well, yeah, no, we're just here accidentally. Make what you will, right? Do as thou wilt. Some of them say that. That's the whole of the law. And so when you look at it, the importance of origin in a philosophy, in your philosophy about the world, about who you are, what you are, where you're going. It's true of any Marvel comic, which coincidentally, these people are obsessed with. And yet they don't see the theme here, that the theme of reality, the fundamental theme, the fundamental architecture of reality is necessitating an origin story such that some kind of teleology is possible. And they reject teleology and they say at the same time, we got to move forward. We got to get past religion. Oh, by the way, the world is essentially dysteleological. I can't say it unless I do J. Dysteleological. It's a contradiction. We have to get to this place. Also, the world's accidental and has no telos. But we have to get there. We should get there. We gotta move past all of this silliness, these silly angels and creation and man walking on water and theosis. These are wacky things. We need to get past that. And yet they say admittedly that there's no such thing as purpose or direction toward anything. So the world has directionality embedded in it. Even survival, the very basics that an evolutionary naturalist thinker would point to, is fundamentally directional toward maintaining itself, maintaining existence. That survival itself is reflective or maybe even parallel to the law of identity itself. The direction is toward something identity-driven. And yet they hold everything's always changing. Everything, a human evolved? What, from what? A non-human? When did that happen? Where did this identity change? Oh yeah, no, we violate the law of identity all the time. It's just, with enough time, the law of identity, it's possible to violate the law of identity, apparently. And yet survival itself assumes identity as survival. What's surviving? How can an identity that's in flux What's the thing that's surviving? Who and what is surviving here? Nothing. It's in flux. And why survival? Why? Oh, it's just incidentally survival. Everything's geared towards survival. Yeah, but why? Why is it that the case? I don't know. That's just the way it unfolded. It emerged. It's an emergent property. They say, well, they should say that with an echo every time. Emergent property. It's emergent property. No, it's nonsense. Totally nonsensical. So we have one component here of why creation already off the bat is superior to a naturalist view. A naturalist view can't account for any of the things I listed. And if you're an atheist in the chat having trouble listening, laws of logic, explanations, philosophy, metaphysics, mathematics, regularity of nature, knowledge, truth, categories, particular, meaning, language, none of which can be justified or measured empirically, verified through all the methods that they say are superior. They can't do it. And yet they claim superiority. I mean, right off the bat, when I debated Planet Peterson in Nashville, the main contention I had was, here we are debating what better explains the nature of reality, naturalism or Christianity? And naturalism, out the gates, has no justification of explanations. Isn't that so funny? Isn't that such a funny, cute troll from God? Like, I honestly believe God is the engineer of what trolling is, because trolling would be a type of truth-telling. And the biggest troll is, oh, look at these people who reject God trying to argue that their worldview, a godless worldview, is a better explanation when explanations themselves can't be justified under their view. It makes people foolish. It's a fool's road to death. So it has you bite the bullet on a variety of things. There's no direction toward truth. There's no ontology for truth. There's no reason to debate truth. There's no reason to find a proper true belief versus a false belief. There's no ultimate use or reason to study science and to apply it in engineering. There's no reason ultimately to do that. There's no reason to keep things alive, to keep people alive. There's no reason to end hunger. There's no reason for anything. And they say, you have no reason for God, they say. And we tell them right back, you have no God for reason. What's reason? Some epiphenomenal chemical reaction in your brain? There's not even a you, dude. Imagine holding a view that says naturalism is a better explanation for reality than creation, even though the thing explaining right now is a machine. See, this is all they have, right? Jim Bob's Old Man in the Sky is childless fantasy. Yeah, grow up. Why? That's exactly my point. You don't have a reason for anyone to grow up, Big Bad Mama. The person who doesn't grow up, right? Nothing lost, nothing gained, bro. You got nothing. You have no reason. You're not listening. You don't have a reason to grow up. There's no direction. Is that a direction? Should we grow up? Science doesn't progress through... there's no such thing as progress, dude. You're not listening to anything I'm saying. How do you determine what progress is using just a strict method? Dude, you're so philosophically broken, you think science itself can give you the criterion for progress. It's amazing. This is how far we've gone downhill in our thinking. in only, 200 years? Diet, the progress, the debate, progress. There's no such thing as progress, dude. You have no criterion for progress. Are you not listening? Are you not listening? NPCs. A God should and does have the ability to create things because he's all-powerful and all-knowing. Naturalism has way more to explain using nothing. They can't even explain explaining. Why would we listen to a worldview that's trying to explain to us things when it can't explain explaining? There's another problem. Why should we grow up? Why ought we progress? You not only don't have a criterion for progress, right? You don't have that. The only possible objective standard for progress would be truth ultimate. But the problem with you guys, Big Bad Mama, is you have to deny ultimacy of truth. That's what's so funny about scientism, is that you rest on the dogma of scientism. You rest on its dogma, and yet the dogma is to deny the absoluteness of truth. Does that make sense to you? No. We have to listen, Jim Bob. Grow up. You should grow up by now and adopt a view that ultimately reduces truth to temporality. Okay, well then you apply that to your own statement, bucko. And it's sad. It's sad. These are grown men. They think we're sad for being grown men, believing that the universe has intentionality and every aspect of the world that we experience intuitively, notionally, noetically, gives us the conclusion that there's intentionality. We embody intentionality. Even animals embody and animate intentionality. In fact, arguing is an act of intentionality. Truth requires intentionality. And Big Bad Mama and the rest of these people, you ask them point blank, are you a determined mechanism? They go, of course I am. Well, there goes truth. If I'm determined to believe in an old man in the sky, Big Bad Mama, why are you confused from your own view of why I hold that view? Isn't the answer, I don't know, drum roll, I'm determined to? Unbelievable. And you still don't get it. You guys still don't understand it. Yeah, all debates would be predetermined. All of it. All of it. So, reality is composed of material, conceptual, and mind. Now, of course, the ongoing debate, which is funny that there's a debate on the question of whether or not the mind is identical to the brain. That's funny to debate that, because if it was identical to the brain, you'd be arguing that there are two determined machines debating. That's like saying two calculators are arguing. That's like saying two calculators are arguing. Really? Okay. So they're not determined. There's no intentionality. They're just actively executing determined commands. And they're like, yeah, that's me. That's me. I'm that. I'm the calculator. Okay, cool. So reality is tripartite in so many ways. Now, this isn't a direct one-to-one analogy to the Trinity, of course, but it's reflective. Time, space, matter. The relationship between those three, the naturalists cannot make sense of. They have to just say that's the way it is. There's no justification for how it is. There's nothing ultimately underneath any of it. It just is the case that reality is reflective of three essential things that can't be reduced to matter. One of them can. Time and space can't. So they have a relationship too. It's not just that they coexist in their own way, but they are inseparable but distinct. They're distinct but not separate. Like sun rays, the sun itself and its rays. How does a naturalist make sense of the relatedness between independent, distinct things? They never think about this. They never ask these questions. They're trying to figure out how to convince you that you're a beast. And they think that's a good explanation of reality. To convince you that you're an animal, that you're a beast, that you're a fish, you're a type of fish. You cannot root out philosophy. This is a world that has conscious thinking. Yeah, science is performed by men using conscious thinking, which affects theories. Yeah, all of it's theoretical. All knowledge is theoretical, theory-laden, including science. Science, definitionally, not even just the scientific experiments, the scientific method. Science itself is theory-laden. So that's one, and that's the essential beginning aspect of why creation makes more sense already off the bat than naturalism. In fact, I would argue that actually pushes naturalism and forces a forfeit. It could only be a type of creation account versus another type of creation account for this very reason. That reality itself, if eternally existent, with no start point, you have an endless regress issue, but you also can't justify metaphysics or truth or knowledge, the immateriality of existence. And to debate it would be to affirm the immateriality of existence, that there is immateriality. To debate, right? Otherwise, you have to say the debate doesn't exist, knowledge doesn't exist, none of it exists, right? None of it exists. Thank you, Unhip Bone. Vincent says, whether or not we have the ability to perceive it, reality still exists. It's irrelevant. Well, yeah, that's actually an argument I use against these people, is that if reality precedes humans, the mind, then the way in which reality exists requires a justification. And that's why the laws of logic are a really key component. Now, coincidentally, there's a live stream, or at least a review of Joshua Sijuwati, who I'm not sure if he's legitimate Orthodox. I forget. The question is, can logic prove Christianity? And that's a big chunk of a debate. I would shorten that and make a bridge in the context of this conversation and say, logic itself is another thing that the naturalist, the non-creation view, has to adopt but has no justification for. And like Vincent said here, logic, the laws of logic have to have an ontology before human beings. When did the stickers shipped? Actually, we're doing one more big run. We're at like 26 or something. We're going to do a big run, and this week, I'm going to do a big run for the last orders, and then we'll get them moving. I didn't do a proper push for them, so thank you for your patience, but yeah. And they are made very quickly, just so you know. You won't be waiting too long after the last push this week, okay? New fan, really appreciate and enjoy what you do. Thank you. I appreciate you. Thanks for the super chat. I really want to know how nothing created something. Well, they would reject that. They would say that something always existed, and then it just transforms energy. They deploy mathematical concepts like the singularity and try to reify them into physics, which is a fallacy. And they'll say there's, you'll get Stephen Hawking drooling on himself, right? And he's like, what if it's the case that there are infinite universes, and each universe is some sort of successive iteration of the previous universe? It's like anything to go to Epstein Island, bucko. Anything to justify whatever the hell you were capable of doing there anyway. The universe is 1450 billion years old. Shut up, guy. Go pop a wheelie. The effect that guy alone has had on the last, 30, 40 years of generations. You'd think the smartest man on earth would figure out how to get out of a wheelchair at least. He's like, no, I'm not working on that. I'm imagining a multiplicity of universes. Why do I need to figure out how to get out of the chair if I could imagine a universe where I'm no longer in the chair? Shut up, dude. Most people are pretty easily convinced of a creator. The biggest hurdle is picking the correct religion, of course, Orthodox Christianity. Yeah, even intuitively, Extangly, I appreciate that 20. Intuitively, people have habitually, cross-culture, cross-civilization, cross-time, right? They intuitively move toward a created world, right? Everything about how things operate reads engineering. If it didn't, by the way, you Spurgs in the chat, if it didn't read engineering, why is it that all of the main engineering firms today are studying nature for engineering? Oh, no. I could see why it seems like it's engineered. I could see why every single engineering firm right now is trying to study nature to mimic its incredible efficiency in very complex, specified, task-oriented systems that produce results consistently and repair themselves in some cases accidentally. Oh, we're gonna have to hit the books, fellas. Listen up, everyone in the engineering firm, gather around the table. I want a thesis from every one of you. I want you to craft out a critical path toward engineering this product from a position that it's accidental and purely incidental, okay? Get to work. Wrong button. Have I watched Destiny? I can't look at his face. Someone mentioned it the other day. I just can't do it. Maybe I can. Maybe next week. I can't. I can't look at his face. Holy cow! That is a big super chat. Josiah, thank you so much for a big 50. W's in the chat. Give that guy a thumbs up. He says, in modern Christianity, so many have been inoculated with such small doses of true Christianity that they never catch the real thing. There are a lot of Christians who believe in some evolution, creation, hybrid, especially among Catholics. Yeah. And it's all social. It's like once you get into it, once you get into defending it, and if I add anything of value, it would be just merely showcasing the inadequacy of the defensive evolution and how it's completely like a social phenomenon. Totally. Total social phenomenon. I just minimized it, listened to the audio, I get it. Well, I just need to recoup. I need to prepare to see his head. You know what I mean? Maybe I'll make it fun. Maybe I'll animate him. Maybe that's what I'll do. I'll build a puppet of destiny. with the chin wobbles. And I'll do a whole scene for it. That's the only way I can survive it. It's like going into TikTok. I can't do it unless I have, I'm dressed as a new ager. What can I say? Yeah, reinforced in the media, reinforced everywhere. And yet they all flock to my channel and nobody can defend it. Okay, which gets us into the next aspect of this. Before we get to the world, the creation of the world, like I said, nobody escapes an origin story. Nobody. Okay? So their origin story is some sort of singular event that has no preceding event, where the expansion of the universe is rapid and quick. And from that, you get incidental, accidental formations of independent, right, particulars, sun, moon, earth, independent, that develop workable relationships, function together, accidentally. And what do they say? They go to their capital G. They just say gravity did it. No, that's not an explanation. That's not a repeatable thing you can do. Wrong. Vincent says for a big 50, thank you so much for that.
That is a big super chat.
If it exists, it was created within our universe all the way to the start of the universe is the effect. To be logically consistent, something caused it. Yeah, the causality of just movement is even consistent with what we know about Newton's laws. That they have to, you know what they have to say, Vincent? Everything was eternally in motion. And then you're like, well, why do you need a created event of the earth then? That's what's so weird about these people. It's a fallacy to prove that we came before God because we don't know the laws outside of our universe. Yeah. But if you granted them eternality of motion, which they need, why are they crafting an idea where a meteor hits another meteor and makes the earth, but then another meteor hits the earth and makes the moon? Well, you know what I'm saying? Like, they don't even need that. Now, I'm not trying to give them ideas, but they could just say the earth has always existed exactly the way it did. It does. There's nothing stopping them under their own, fantasy world machine, their Wayback Machine. There's nothing stopping them from just saying, not only that, there's nothing stopping them from saying life itself always existed. They're always running into problems with abiogenesis. There's no reason under their epistemology, which is already broken, that they can't just say, if they, like, for instance, if they just take an ad hoc approach and say it's the way it is, there's no reason why they say it's the way it is for reality, but they can't say it's just the way it is for life itself. Life always existed. It just got transported here. What's the problem? But no, they have to create a moving part mechanistic creation event that excludes intentionality. That's what they have to do. They have to hold an accidental process that created Earth, created this functional solar system that works, together. It's all mereological. Multiple components working together for no reason, accidentally. So they get an accidental solar system. And by the way, their moon story is hilarious. You guys know what they teach now? Are you aware of what they teach? They teach that the earth itself is a product of a previous thing, and then the moon is the product of some other thing hitting the earth, breaking off a chunk. They literally have a Kit Kat bar earth scenario. And the moon forms its perfect ostensible sphere in the sky, right? And then the Earth does that. And yet they're pretty damn close together still, considering that the level of force required in, by the way, the vacuum of space, no resistance, the level of force to chop what would previously be the proto-Earth, again with these protos, everything has a proto, everything's a proto. The amount of force and size for that to happen, for that cleave to happen, and send off something. By the way, if something hit the Earth strong enough to hit the moon, to make a chunk that's the moon, it's not just the moon that moves away from the Earth at a rapid speed given the amount of force required, but the Earth also moves away from the moon together rapidly. And this is how many billions of years ago, right? I mean, it's wild. Like, there's a dude. Let me see if I can find it here. There's a dude on Danny Jones. Now, he's like an alien guy, so, you know, take what you will. But he talks about this, and it's really funny. It's really funny the way, if I can find it here, the way he describes the moon being created is really funny. Geologist, most replayed. Hold on. I saw a clip of it, so I'm... cosmic... The moon. Okay, here we go.
Like spreading out, not always leaving or anything, but we should be spreading out. Like that should be, in my opinion, a higher priority than it currently is.
Yeah. What do you think about us getting our technology somehow onto the moon for future, just in case, as like a fail-safe?
I think it's a great idea. I think we should be going back to the moon. Or getting to.
Don't you think it's weird? Like even Elon Musk.
Yeah, he corrected himself. Getting to the moon.
Musk doesn't even talk about the moon.
Yeah, I don't understand it. Honestly, it seems like it's like stop the Mars stuff. Let's test this stuff. And in fact, the moon makes so much more sense to establish.
You know why Elon Musk doesn't talk about the moon? Because he found out we never went. He tried to go. They shut him down. They took him to Congress, dude. They said, no. We'll give you a little McDonald's play set in the backyard of NASA. We'll even give you some money. Hey, can you launch a rocket up and have it land? Can you do a carnival event for us instead? He's like, oh, okay, sorry, no. So grew up thinking I wanted to go to the moon. So it was a big dream of mine, and finally met my heroes, and then I said I want to do it what you guys did. So it's so cool that go to space, land on the moon. So they said no. And so it was sort of strange that, my heroes essentially became my enemies.
An outpost there because that is a far more efficient location for...
And then I became best friends with Joe Rogan, so yeah, people think I'm funny.
Launching like intrasolar missions. You don't have to fight gravity. You just, like, you get stuff to the moon. You can put together a mission that goes to Mars with much, much less resources than do.
Hold on, everyone stop. Vagine has to talk.
It's
Hey, Aaron.
CB.
Hey,
I
Aaron
never
CB.
miss a show, but I never catch you live, so I owe you money. Steady
Thank you.
pressure. You've got these spugs on the ropes.
Thank you.
God bless.
Thank you so much. Very generous tip there. Nice to see you. I'm glad you're in the background there. Hey, Jim Bob, relatively new here. Had a trad cat friend say their morals come from their moral compass. How would I explain that is just a preference? Well, if you can push on their analogy and say the moral compass is a measurement of something that exists, even in that analogy. So you wouldn't say if a compass reads magnetic frequency or whatever, the source of magnetic frequency isn't the compass itself, right? So that doesn't make sense. So no, the compass, we wouldn't deny that we have a moral compass. In orthodoxy, the nous, that we're made in the image of God, and because of that, it's not that our heart and our mental faculties are infallible, but we have them, and like morality, truth itself is written on our heart, we would say. That is a type of compass, truth and morality compass. So they're not wrong in using the term, but they can't say it comes from the compass. It doesn't come from the compass. So that's what I would say back to them. And if it was relativistic, then they're not talking about morality. There's no reason someone should call a preference a moral unit of measure at all. There's no reason for it. They should just be consistent and say, I have preferences. Why would you call them moral? If preferences could be called moral, then, licorice mayonnaise, if you didn't like it, you'd have to say it was immoral, but it doesn't make sense. Hey guys, send prayers. My wife went into labor. Glory to God. Prayers to stillborn. That's awesome, dude. Amazing.
And you can test all of your systems. We're close enough where you can rescue people, maybe.
Have you seen the movie with Brad Pitt?
Yeah.
Where his dad
Yeah, have you seen movies?
works on a spaceship that's like off of Saturn, I believe.
One of the moons of like Titan or Europa.
No, he was on Neptune.
Oh, that's right.
That's another funny thing. They name other moons, and they have to come up with the same exact regular process, probably, of how the moon, given that thing. It's like, like every major has a relative minor. Every planet has a relative minor called the moon. But from their view, it's all created accidentally through a set of collisions, but they maintain this loyal, compatible relation to each other.
His dad was doing research on Neptune, and he went to the moon, and then he launched a rocket off the moon to get to Mars.
That's right. That's a movie, Danny. Yeah. Hey, Danny, I don't know if you know this, but that was a movie.
That's how you do it. I think that's that's what we would do. You'd launch it off the moon. You just don't have to overcome that much gravity, spend that much fuel trying to do it.
It seems so weird. Why are we glossing right over the moon?
Well, we're supposed to go
because we can't go
back, right? What's the name of the Artemis, the moon missions that are supposed to go back?
You mean all of them? You mean every single moon mission that they said they were going to do? And the only ones we have are the ones they presented on live TV?
Soon. I can't remember when, but I really hope we do. Like, I think the moon's the place to go. Like, that's like step one. Mars is great and all, but like, let's go to the moon. Like, the moon,
nope.
The moon's the place to really establish an outpost, I think, first. And then, really that's becomes the launching pad for everything else.
Yeah, you'd think, right? You'd think that. You would think that. You'd think they'd have already a built little observatory up there. Or, what better place to go to study from a new vantage point, the system we live in, but the moon. But no, we can't do that. We lost the technology, according to, Don Pettit.
Well, we would go back to the moon in a nanosecond, but the problem is we destroyed the technology. Does that make any effing sense to you? Probably not. By the way, I'm 200% autistic.
I'd really love I've talked about it before, The Expanse. You into that? The books and the show, The Expanse. You heard of it?
I've never heard of it.
Oh, it's a great show. So it's a book that's...
I want them to get to the part where...
So there's all these different factions in the galaxy, all the... If I dropped it or whatever. But ever observed another sort of planet-moon relationship like we have with our moon? And...
relationship.
The fact of the matter is life wouldn't exist on this planet without the moon there, without the moon creating intertidal zones. There's all sorts of anomalies about the moon itself. It's, it's 25% the size of the Earth, but about, I think, 4 or 5% its mass. So it's vastly lighter and yet stronger at the same time too. There's a really strange dynamic.
Stronger?
It's stronger, yeah. So it's like it should be deforming at a different rate based on its density and the gravitational pull that's exerted on it by the planet. In fact, there's all these gravitational anomalies on the moon. We've detected like different levels of gravity in different places on the moon. But what is interesting about the moon is that because there's no atmosphere, we can see the...
That's my fun, Drew, that's the funniest one. People say that, and I point them into the direction of Don Pettit doing a full 45-minute TED Talk on why the moon, why we should, why it's important, why it makes no sense that we're not there.
Craters that are on it, right? And some of the craters are massive, like they're like 400 kilometers across.
Right.
But they only ever go to a certain depth. They only ever go, like, I think it's a couple of kilometers deep. Like that, it's like...
Interesting thought you have. If time, matter are eternal, then motion, quote, isn't real because what we see as a change is just our perspective moving through static cross-sections. Yeah, the whole idea of motion, which physics is largely built on, the view ultimately is that it's all relative. So you never know what's moving from their conception, what they teach. Another problem, right? It's more relativism. Like philosophical relativism has intruded, is leaked into science because the cosmological model is there's no static truth. There's nothing static to conclude your observations to be the case. Nothing. In fact, from their view, wherever you go in the universe, this is how they cope. Wherever you go in the universe, it'll appear like you're the center of the universe. When we observe, our observations align with this being the center of all things, the way we look up, right? That vortex, that spiral. But they go, no, calm down. Wherever you go, it'll occur like that. I promise. We're not special. Even Hubble put it explicitly in his language that he was horrified at the notion of a special place in the universe. Horrified. And so he what did he do? He excavated from his mind a conception of the universe that's like a bread, bread baking with nuts and berries, and establish some sort of idea of a thingness of the universe that's expanding based on his observation of light and other things. And so they developed this idea of an expanding universe. But the problem I have with this view is the universe isn't isolated to a thing. So when you say the universe, you're saying singular. You're now putting it as a particular in a category. So is the universe a thing? What's expanding? What's the thing expanding? Like if I blew up a balloon, it would make sense to say the balloon's expanding because the balloon has a defined, rigid contour. And this is true of anything. If I hold up my phone, the only reason this makes sense in this reality to say this is a phone and it's not my hand is that there's space that's not the phone around this phone. But for the universe, they don't have this. And yet they talk like they have it. They don't. They don't have it. Have you watched the Moon episode? The Y Files? Maybe. I'm not good with titles. I watch a lot of stuff, though.
We know the mechanics of like crater dynamics, right?
Yeah.
So we can see this on the Earth and on other planets. When stuff hits and it's bigger, it's going to go deeper. On the Moon, everything stops at this one uniform depth, no matter how big.
Space itself is expanding. Well, no, that's what I'm saying. What's space? Space is the absence of matter. How can you say the absence of matter is expanding? What does that even mean? You're saying the distance between two objects is expanding? Okay, what's expanding then? You see the problem here? You have this thing called space that you call space. But the only way you make sense of space is by positive matter and what's in between it not being positive matter. And you're saying negative matter is expanding. That doesn't make any sense. What's expanding? You don't have a referent, dude. That's the problem. You don't have a referent. What are you pointing to?
big the crater is. It's as if it's like this, there's this softer material on top for a couple of kilometers, and then it's some hard shell.
Metaphysics is expanding. Reality is expanding. That's like saying freedom's expanding. Look at freedom expand. Doesn't make sense.
That it just bounces off, and it just nothing penetrates. I think it's like 2 or 3 kilometers or something. But there's this really interesting study on the crater depths. No matter the size of the crater, it only ever goes in so deep.
What happens to the rocks that hit it?
It just, they all...
Typically on the Earth, they go underneath the crater, right?
Right. I don't think we've ever gone up there and dug in to see, but just from...
Yeah, that's what I'm saying about... This is the other part about all of this. The view of what this object is, whether it's the Earth or the moon, right? For whatever given object, a lot of times they'll say like the center is molten, right? Or something like this. I don't know if they say that for the moon or whatever, but let's say it was, just to be consistent. Let's say at some point in time it necessarily needed to be. When you look at circles on the moon, when you look at concentric circles, it makes much more sense that what causes concentric circles is a type of bubbling or eruption, given that the texture of what's bubbling allows for concentric circles, even if they're small or large. What doesn't make sense, and you'll get Neil Tice to Smushdash talking about this, he has this video because someone asked, well, if meteors, if your explanation is giant meteors land on these things and create these massive craters, first of all, you have to say that the meteor itself is gone, and what's left is just a dent, first of all. But you know what else he says? That has to be a pretty direct hit, right? For that nice circle. He goes, no, that's what's crazy. Meteors, okay, are going so fast that even if, hold on, even if they skimmed the moon, they would leave a perfect concentric circle. Oh, really? You're a gaslighting freak. You're a freak. You're a pig snake. You're a pig snake in space.
From our observation of the moon, we can tell that these craters, no matter even the biggest ones, only go a certain depth. Like they don't penetrate into the moon any further. It's like it's got a shell around it or something.
Yeah.
It's really strange.
Tunguska is the dinosaur.
Tunguska is the dinosaur. Yeah, that's the one in what? Switzerland, Sweden or something? I actually bought some of that when I was making jewelry, and I would be all excited. Look at this thing from space. And I'm like, I don't know about that. You missed my first super chat. Can you review a friend's first debate and give your thoughts? Ooh, a first debate sounds horrifying, but maybe. This is a great point. They can't actually point to something and say it's expanding. The matter in the universe is expanding into the rest of the universe. There is no edge of the actual universe. Yeah, I understand that's part of the relativity. No, the time to travel between particles increases. Does that necessarily need a reference to say the distance is increasing? Distance is a metaphysical measurement between two objects, but you can't say it's a physical thing expanding. That's the difference, Jem Goodrick. That you're reifying space. That's like when they say space-time bends. That's a reification fallacy. They're making concrete what's conceptual. That doesn't make any sense. You can't make concrete what's conceptual. Which comes back to why a created world makes more sense, because the world includes matter but requires non-matter to talk about matter. The material world that's made of material requires non-material things to even say the material world, to even like talk about it in a meaningful way. It doesn't make sense. They're like, yeah, no, I'll borrow totally imaginary things that I should otherwise deny in order to talk about the real stuff. Sure, yeah, no, let me have it. Let me do it.
So, no, Tunguska is 1908. That was the Siberia.
Siberia. What was the one that killed the dinosaurs?
Well, they call it the...
A block of ice melting, expanding into a pool of water, heat transfer. I don't know who that responding to. What is that responding to? Is that someone else in the chat you're talking about? I don't know what you're responding to.
I think it was the Jurassic Triassic or that was Chicxa Club or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce it.
Right. It's like in the Gulf, the bottom part of the Gulf, like Cancun or.
What are you thinking? What are you, some sort of thinking?
Yeah, Cancun.
Yeah, Yucatan.
Yucatan, yeah. Is there? Have they ever tried to like dig into that and like find pieces of that?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think you're just looking at the remnants of some.
Is the thing still solid under the ground?
It depends on the material. We don't know. Like it would be so far. If there's a core of that, it would be so deep and.
Yeah, think about this though. Really seriously, you have to imagine this. A giant thing that has the capacity to literally shatter what you call a planet lands, and all of it disintegrates into nothing, but it leaves a nice dent. There's not a core, there's not a pile of the core. It's like the tennis ball landed in the cement, but the tennis ball was traveling so fast when it hit the wet cement that it literally disappeared, but left the nice dish. Theory, time isn't real. What's real is the effect of pressure, heat, cold. What is ages? Things. Ages is a good one too. That's another one I'll get into. Why creation, not only for unique things like the moon and the earth and other things in the universe, including animals. From a creation view, things being created maintain their identity. They have an identity. They have a beginning. Under the non-creation view, they deny not only identity, but they deny origin, which is kind of funny because it shows up everywhere. Notice how the people who deny God, most of them, they affirm an arbitrary, ambiguous start of a human being, right? Even though scientifically, conception is the necessary moment in time for the start of what you call a human being. And yet that's a myopic example of what they also think about the earth. Ask any of these people, I don't even know if this guy is included on the screen. Ask any of the people in the chat here, when the earth began. What's the beginning of the earth, right? What's the age of the earth? Okay, to say there's an age of the earth is to say there's an origin of the earth, a start date, a stamp. When does the earth go home with the family in the carriage, right? Where's the birth certificate? Colloquially, right? They don't have one. The age of the earth has nothing to do with a created moment in time. It has everything to do with the earth is composed of a multiplicity of other things that have a previous age. This is why it's endless regress. You couldn't possibly, from their paradigm, know the age of the earth because the age of the earth is the age of matter, and earth is made of matter that precedes the earth. It's nonsensical.
Retrograde. Hey, your mom is expanding. Neil deGrasse Tyson, probably.
Oh, hold on. Ooh, we're all made of stardust. We're just dancing stardust. Isn't that beautiful?
So buried in sediment and probably at the bottom of the damn ocean, you'd have to drill way down to try and find it. I don't know if anyone's...
The Genesis creation narrative is laughable, most definitely not a better explanation. Yeah, that's an assertion. Do you understand, Stephen, that explanations themselves can't be explained from naturalism? Better? There's no such thing as better under naturalism. That's what's so pathetic about naturalism. Stephen? That's a giant. Nope. Explanations don't exist under naturalism. Better. That's a value judgment. Those don't exist under naturalism. There's no reality of something being better, dude. You haven't thought about any of this. It's embarrassing.
attempted it, but they don't always leave a trace like that. I think, as Randall was saying on your podcast, it depends on the density of the object as it comes in.
Please then explain how land plants existed before the sun. What do you mean? We don't hold a naturalistic paradigm, you dunce. Please explain from my naturalistic paradigm, then, how plants existed before the sun. Unbelievable.
And whether
the
or not
level
there's a
of
core
retardation is wild.
Right.
There could be.
It's iron. There could be.
If there's iron, or it's like mostly iron.
Why don't I do face filters? Because the system I was using, which was awesome, which was called, what was that one app? Said something camera. They discontinued the app. You guys remember what it was called? I forgot what it's called. They discontinued it, and then all of my customs that I made were gone. And now some people say you can download a GitHub version of it. Something camera. You guys remember what it was called? You know, the popular one with all the filters. I don't know why they stopped it. It was like so fun. Anyway, I couldn't find a good alternative that could work as quickly in real time. I'm still looking. I actually looked last week for something that was adequate, and it wasn't. So Snapchat. It was Snapchat. It was Snapchat camera. Yep. They got rid of it. People swear that there's an alternative, though. Do you think there's a difference between generalization about when the Earth became a functional ball, saying there is a literal moment? No, the problem there is you don't have a criterion for functional. This is the same problem with evolution and the rest of the reality here. I'm glad you used the term functional, because function arriving from non-function doesn't make sense. In order to develop a function, there has to be a function for development. Does that make sense? For a factory, for you to develop something that's functional, there has to be a proto-function that builds function. This is the problem, right? What's a functional ball? What does that mean? When does it become functional? So you're saying the beginning of the Earth is the beginning of functional. Well, what does that mean? Obviously, if the Earth's functionality, that's ambiguous, by the way, but the Earth, let's say you took an arbitrary approach to listing what the functionality of the Earth was. Let's say it required the moon. Then you have to have the functionality of the moon developing from non-functionality. And then you have to maintain that the sun and the moon and the Earth, there's this moment where you finally get the right, when you take a picture of your kids and they're all perfectly smiling for once. I've got 3 kids, so it's an appropriate analogy. That one moment, now we got it. Keep it up, guys. Hey, son, please keep up what you're doing, even though there's no reason to under the naturalistic paradigm for you to maintain what you're doing. Great. Keep that going. You're doing great. Moon, tides, action. Okay, can we keep this up? It's like juggling. It's like a plate. It's like those people on stage with the plates. It's like it's totally arbitrary. Functionality. It's like Eli asked that one dude when I finally got off that call, how do you determine something's even functioning? To even say something's functioning means that there is something called dysfunctioning. How do you know what you're looking at? Oh, it's functional now. How do you know it's not dysfunctioning? You notice how he didn't answer that guy's question. Eli did great with that, because that's a really brutal one. It's the same argument I'll use today is accidentalism, which is the only other alternative between an intentional view of reality and an intentional view of reality is favoring of creationism. And if you deny intentionality and you adopt accidentalism, there's no way for you to make sense of accidentalism without intentionality. So it's a trap anyway. It's a filthy trap that we set for you guys, and you walk into it every time.
Yeah, but there should be some left over. Certainly we've got plenty of like meteoric iron fragments and cores that we find around the place. But it'd be cool to find something big from that. But I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know if they've dug down and find it.
Yeah, you don't dig down and find any of it. I don't know, Danny Jones, because did you ever think that maybe the story you were told about a giant thing creating the moon from severing the previous thing called Earth or whatever, did you ever think that maybe the giant necessary, quote, asteroid that landed in Mexico that you believe killed all the dinosaurs on the entire Earth somehow, given that that's a specialized region right there, maybe that's not true? He's like, none of this makes sense. None of this actually makes sense.
Yeah, the thing about the moon is insane. Like it's pretty fucking wild when you start to dig into it. I mean, it gets pretty really like tinfoil hat, but
it does. But there's no good explanation for how the moon got there. Like it's
functional is an agreed upon term. No. That would assume that we agreed on a functional brain. Okay. No, that doesn't work. No, if you agree upon a function, and if it's true that functional is an agreed upon term, then now you're resting on something that can't be agreed upon, which is the function of your brain that gives you a definition and the capability of agreeing. No, survival doesn't look, survival doesn't rest on truth claims, right? So it doesn't favor truth. This is like planning the evolutionary process might favor survival, and that's granting too much, but it doesn't favor truth. And so coming to the arrangement in your head that evolution is true isn't actually something you could know. All you could say is that certain beliefs and actions are either favor survival or they don't, but including this statement.
Jimbo,
it doesn't make sense.
Black here. Sorry to use up your light and delightsome stream time, but I advise not granting your opponent's function where physics or chemistry would be more appropriate.
To say events.
Function implies a purposeful, mind-dependent use of physics.
Right.
A hammer does not function. It obeys physics. Same with skin cells.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm trying to reduce it to states of affairs, and that's still granting a whole slew of metaphysical statements. So that's what's wild, is that in our effort to refute the naturalist and the physicalist, no matter what we talk about, we're already giving them some training wheels. So, over time, I've reduced it from laws of physics. That was my first form of the argument that you guys recall. And now it was like events. Even event is a metaphysical thing. An event, states of affair, whatever. It's like how do you come up with a word that for the nature of just what something is in the sense of what, like that it exists and there's an event or a combination of the two, without giving so much philosophical framework for it. It's impossible, honestly, but there's got to be a good one that grants the least. I don't know what it is, though. Anyway, this is important, Mike. I'll say it one more time. If functional is an agreed upon term, right, then agreement itself requires a function. So did you agree on the function of the brain? No. You use the brain to make agreements, so you don't know. You couldn't possibly know. They'll admit that their own theories hinge on odds, so infinitesimally small, they may as well be impossible, right? But the possibility of God, no. Yeah, that's true. And by the way, they can't even justify possibility or stochastics anyway. They can't. That relies on a bunch of assumptions that aren't based in like a probability. Jimbo's behavior, no. Donald Smack, it wasn't an L. The dude refused to answer questions. I answered questions. He said, no, I'm not answering questions. So every time he got trapped in a corner where we used his reasoning on the thing in question, which was the mind, the brain, he suddenly started running. So no, get out. You're a loser. Nope. There's no justification to not reach the goal. That's right, 2 minutes. Well, can you guys do 5 in 2.5 minutes? Bet you can. Is it stupid to say that some atheists kind of require some sort of faith in the term dinosaurs? Oh yeah. Dude, everyone's view is faith-based. That's just, it has nothing to do with atheism either. But they don't like that term, so be careful. It's like they become rabid, like their mouth quivers and they start foaming when you say the word faith. They're like, anything. No, we do agree on the function of the brain. No, that required a function that you couldn't agree on. Our brains say whether things are reality or true or false. It's amazing how much you're granting yourself. You're not getting this. All functional brains agree an apple isn't a chair. Okay, that's begging the question. Do you know what begging the question is? How do you not see it in your comment? No, we agree on the function of the brain. Did your brain need to function for you to agree? What came first? The function of your brain giving you the possibility of agreeing on anything, or agreement? Which is it? It's just amazing. Thank you, Austin. Appreciate that.
Very unique. The mainstream explanation for how the moon got there is very suspect. And
this is so funny. You got to watch. I like this guy because he's like, what the hell?
Admittedly very suspect by the people that even come up with it. Like they're like, this is kind of the way we think it kind of comes. Yeah, it's the double big whack theory. I think I was explaining to you.
Yeah. A double whack theory? You got to be kidding me. The double whack theory?
It's this idea that because the moon is so lightweight and less dense, it's like surface material from planet Earth is what it's formed of is what they think. So, something splattered into a primordial Earth hard enough, like a protoplanet or something hit us.
A proto, every time it's a proto.
To take off this huge amount of mass, volume of mass, not specifically mass, but only surface mass, not because people don't realize, Earth is iron. We are 40, I think, the most abundant element on the planet.
Does the idea of a no objective moment where it becomes, it's not the moment. It's not about a moment. It's about the criterion for what determines functional. Okay? I didn't say it's, the moment itself is a secondary problem. You can't get to the moment unless you know what you're looking for as a referent. You don't have a set of criterion that's objective to determine something's, quote, functional from a purely accidental naturalistic view. So I've been focusing in the last couple of weeks on evolution having this problem at the micro level, at the organism level, at the brain level. But this problem is everywhere. Functional. You don't have a criterion for what functional is when it comes to in this case now, the Earth. What is a functional Earth? It's not when. When is another problem. When is put the when on the shelf. In order to determine when something could occur, you need to know what it is you're actually looking at occurring. You need to know how to look for the thing. Well, you don't have a criterion for functional when it comes to the Earth being, quote, functional. We don't know how matter produces a functioning brain, just like we don't know how matter produces a sun. That's total red non sequitur. It totally avoids the problem. Saying you don't know assumes the thing in question, that a brain properly functions to know something. So to say you don't know or I know something, you're already resting on a mechanism that needs to perform things adequately, follow the laws of logic, right? Are the laws of logic in agreement now? Is that just an agreement that the laws of thought are what govern proper thinking, even though there's no such thing as proper thinking from the naturalistic view?
Planet is iron. It's like 47% iron. Like we are hard rock in space. Like the surface.
Both worldviews contain I don't knows. No. It's your worldview doesn't contain knowledge. So no, you don't. That's not true, Mike. To say I don't know is to say knowledge exists and is possible. Under naturalism, knowledge is impossible. So you don't have I don't know and I don't know, because you're granting yourself something you can't justify under your worldview. Knowledge. Under your worldview, if you're defending naturalism now, knowledge has no ontology. Your justified true belief, there's no you, there's a machine. There's just a mechanical machine doing a thing. Whatever you think you came to, that was a reasonable belief. Even the idea that there's a you that's looking down at your thoughts and having thoughts about thoughts and doing all this stuff, that's an illusion. You're like, no, grant me a me. Grant me that there's knowledge and grant me that there's a proper way to think so that I could know whether or not some things are unknown. No, we don't grant you any of that. Not a single bit. Listening at work, God bless all Jortlandia. Yes, God bless all of you, even though you're far short of the goal. What can I say? This is a little heavier stuff.
The stuff, not so much. There's not as much iron out here, but obviously the moon's not made of iron. So something hits the Earth really hard, takes that much material out into an orbit around the planet, and then eventually it correlates and sort of forms the moon as it is. But that impact into Earth would have left it spinning at a high rate, such that it needed another impact from exactly the right direction and exactly the right speed, hitting the Earth at exactly the right point to slow it down.
Hitting the Earth too. What is the Earth, right? So they're like, oh, the moon came from the Earth. What was it? The Earth? What was it? The Earth? The moon, the thing hit the Earth. Was it the Earth?
To our current rotational speed and dynamics. So it's what they call the double big whack theory.
Double big whack theory. He's trolling. He's making Danny Jones say this on his podcast.
Big whack theory.
Yeah, so two big whacks into the Earth is how they approximate, billions of years ago, of course.
The Earth is a dreidel. The Earth's a dreidel.
Cool it with the anti-Semitic remarks.
That this somehow happened. And it's not a very strong, like, people are like, the probability is super, super low for that possibility.
It's so bad. It's pathetic. I mean, what these people have to do to reject God is wild. You have to become an animal. You have to say that you're an ape. You have to say that you came from a fish. You have to say that the creation of a very specific codependent system of unrelated parts, in this case the solar system, accidentally was the process of a collision, accidentally. And then not only that, the maintenance, the fact that these relationships maintain meaningful relations. They're loyal to each other. Oh, that's an accident too. Accident. My brain's an accident. My propositions are accidents. Even us talking about this is an accident. There's no will in the matter, and it's all unfolding. See, that's so much better than believing in God. Fine, Jim Bob, I'll give you more money. Yes, please. Thank you. So you're saying a warm glass of water can't exist in a naturalistic world? I don't even know. I don't even know what to say to this one. In a purely naturalistic world, right? The idea of a glass would be an engineered feature. That a human had the capacity and knowledge and foresight and intentionality to make, with thought, a glass. That does a thing. The criteria for warm is a spectrum. Well, warm, no. You could say warm is a measurement, but what it's measuring isn't something that's unknowable. That's why dualism falls apart. Warm is in reference to heat. Heat positively exists. Coldness doesn't. So warm is in reference to heat. Heat positively exists. The fact that warm is on a spectrum away from heat as a privation doesn't negate that heat exists positively. Heat. And still, nothing you said is actually dealing with the problem that I'm talking about. We were talking about the function of the earth and how naturalism cannot justify metaphysics and conceptual framework of reality. There's nothing in nature. Naturalism can't justify warm, even, the concept. You keep granting yourself the evaluative process, meaningful categories and words to describe reality. Jem Goodrick, under naturalism, those descriptions are just epiphenomenal bubbling effects. He keeps, the naturalist keeps granting themselves the capability to evaluate reality and then talk about it in a meaningful way. They're like, no, that's what I'm doing. Just grant me the entire suitcase of unnatural things. If all the planets and moons are accidentally chunks of other things, how come they are all perfect spheres in shape? They say gravity, dude. They'll just say gravity, Don Lemon. Gravity is the invisible sculpting hands.
It happened. They don't really know. Most of the people that dig into the moon get to the point where like just scratching their head going, we don't really know how it got here. But if you were to design a system to support life, if you were to create an environment to support life, then it's pretty perfect. Like it doesn't get any more perfect. Exactly. Almost. Like we need the moon. We need the Earth in the specific location it is. We need the tilt of the Earth to give us that seasonality. The moon gives us those intertidal zones with its gravity, and those are the areas on the planet where life first emerged and evolved. It's remarkable how necessary the moon is for life on the planet, and it's almost as if you were designing like a little test kit for life or habitat for life. You absolutely need the moon there.
But this doesn't end here, guys. The moon, like their concept of cosmology, requires all of these necessary parts that have relations, and not only relations, they have to have these type of laws. Laws are not actually found in the matter. You're just defining knowledge as in a hyper-specific way to make it not fit empiricism? No, I'm not. Justified true belief. That's not... How else are you going to define knowledge? I'm literally granting the empiricist, materialist definition of knowledge, which is justified true belief, dude. You're coping. That's a big nope. Define knowledge. Dude, however you define knowledge, it doesn't even matter. Define knowledge however you want. Watch how it won't fit into the empiricist, materialist view. Look, I'll let you define it. Proprietary. I'll give you full proprietary freedom right now. Let's do it. You give the whole chat your definition of knowledge, however you think it's going to work. I guarantee you, under the materialist, empiricist view, it won't work. I grant myself the ability to evaluate reality because when I believe in reality, I tend to suffer less bad things. That doesn't follow. That's not even proper logic. You grant yourself the thing in question because you have beliefs about avoiding suffering. Nope. That's not a justification for the ability to evaluate. Not only that, that affirms your two things that aren't justified. Your ability to evaluate things rely on the regularity of nature, that the world outside maintains its regularity. That means that lampposts and items maintain their structure, maintain their location, maintain their effects of physics that they have on other things and things have on them. You grant yourself those things which are necessary preconditions because you have the ability to think about them? No, that's not how this works, man. Not even close. Not even close. You just like threw a life preserver on the other side of the boat. Like you're drowning on one side and you threw yourself a life preserver on the other side of the boat. Isn't gravity still unexplained? Yes. They just explained its effects. Yeah, it's only effects. That's all they got. Which I don't know why they're having such a problem just declaring the observable local effects of things falling is just a law-like thing we see. They're like, no, we need a cause that's conceptual, that we have no access to. What about bending space-time? Why don't you give up and just call it a law?
And this is another analogy on an extension of the whole technology discussion. It's like as technology evolves, we were talking about space flight and stuff before.
Oh, yeah. Hold on. I interrupted myself. This guy was talking about the necessary relationships that the moon, the sun, and the earth have in a very specific way that gives, from the evolutionary view, this precondition set of circumstances for life to then emerge from their view, which is still mystical. Every step of the way, dude. They call us these mystical, crazy people for saying God, that creation is an act of God with purpose and meaning and regularity and all sorts of things, right? Everything else. They're like, you guys are, we don't appeal to miracles. Every single stage in their cosmological account of the existence of the earth, the solar system, but once they have that, every stage of life then being possible to emerge out of non-life, miracle. Once you have life, every stage of life then splintering off in the diversity and the multiplicity of life that we see today from their model, a miracle. Mathematically, by their own standard, not even by our standard, dude. Not even by our standard. By their standard. I missed his super chat. Hold on. Did the guy give a definition of knowledge or no? Because he said, "Oh, you have I have a problem with your definition of knowledge," which is the going definition of knowledge for all atheists at this point. There are no laws of physics. Okay. Well, I guess we can't trust that your brain operated properly. Knowledge, the ability to grasp facts. No, that's circular. No, knowledge isn't an ability. Hey, do you have knowledge? I can jump. That's an ability. I can see things. That's an ability. Right? No. You have to have a mechanism to gain knowledge. The mechanism can itself be knowledge. That's completely incoherent. That's a big fat nope. Nope. Big fat nope. Column rocks. Oh, column rock. Okay, I'll get back to it. Hold on. My 13-year-old has been openly challenging people on evolution, space, origin theory lately. After listening to you, she kids grew up listening to you, so she has a solid foundation. Well, that must be fun. It's actually fun when my own kids ask questions. You know, one of them's like, "Well, I want to go to space." And I'm like, "Good luck with that." Hey, good luck with that, then. Gravity is so weak, a bird can overcome it, yet it's so strong it turns massive chunks of rock and iron into perfect spherical shapes. Yeah. Well, then they go back and forth between some like mass attracts mass model and some sort of swaying of space-time, which they don't have an ontology for. Both fall apart as a cause. They don't. There's no cause. You can't. The reason science has really abandoned the scientific method is because of Einstein. Totally, completely. Because I blame it completely on Einstein.
Cool it with the anti-Semitic remarks.
In his 1915 paper, there's not a single experiment. I believe in reality because that proves useful mind. That's circular. You obviously don't believe in logic because you're using irrational, illogical means. Okay? You don't care about circularity. It's begging the question. It's assuming the thing in question. You believe in reality because it proves useful. You believe that too? Isn't your reality that it's proved useful? Well, no, that's completely circular, man. Come on. What do you need, a coach? What do you need, a life coach? He's my favorite scientist. He didn't do a single experiment. He's a philosopher. Everything is relative. Yeah, I saw that contradiction as well. Big contradiction there. Just stop. Just listen. You know what I'm saying? Just stop. You're not... You're like, well, this is exciting because, people haven't really, in your daily life, they don't ask these questions and you're forced to answer them. But you got to think about these questions. You got to think about them. Yeah, exactly. There's no ontology of a fact. What's a fact made of? You ever step in a fact? Don't come in here. I see that fact on your shoe. You better wipe that off. It's not in general. Yeah, it's not an ability. No, knowledge would be... Justified true belief is perfectly fine to operate with as a definition. Has a definition, has like a two-part definition of what, and then, a criterion for how you got there. I don't know why you deny that. It's like, why would they deny the JTB? In materialism, there are just interpretations. I wouldn't even grant that, actually. An interpretation under materialism, under like a strict physicalist view, the thing you're calling an interpretation would also be an event. So if someone says, well, no, I'm a materialist, but I interpret reality. And you go, wait. As a materialist, as a physicalist, as a naturalist, you're holding that everything in reality that exists is fundamentally material. So interpretations would be events. So you say, I use events to interpret events. And then you go, well, how do you interpret that event then? And you're like, with another event. It's like, well, as I've established through a pretty hardcore argument, events, states of affairs aren't truth apt. So interpretations under Warham, interpretations would be events. So it'd be like this. Events are not truth apt. They're not true or false under this physicalist view. Premise 2, interpretation are events. Interpretations are events. Interpretations can't be true or false. They're just events. That's it. They're just events.
I imagine now we go to space, right? We have to use spaceships and small things and lightweight composite materials because we're trying to overcome forces of gravity and nature.
Why can't chemical reactions produce an evaluator? Well, let's say evaluation. An evaluator is a knower. You can't say a chemical reaction is the evaluator of the chemical reaction. So the reason I just said with my argument, I could swap out states of affairs with the chemical reactions. Chemical reactions are not truth apt. They just occur deterministically. They just occur, like a blade of grass or anything else. Bubbling, soup, whatever. These are caused events and effects. So the reason you can't say chemicals produce evaluators or evaluations is that it doesn't shift the category. You're still chemicals. So chemicals produce chemicals is what you have to say. How can it... Look, I'll ask you, Mike. How can a chemical be more true than another chemical? Tell me. How can a chemical or a chemical reaction be more true than another chemical reaction right next to it? Does objective truth require knowledge? I would say knowledge requires the assumption of truth. I would put it the other way around. Something needs to be the case for knowledge to be possible. Knowledge, the other way around, would be autonomous, that you gain knowledge from your isolated view, and then you build knowledge up like the Tower of Babel, and everyone gets a brick. Everyone gets a say. We vote on it even. Why not? Democratic knowledge pillar. No, it's not a stupid question, because it really actually isolates this necessary distinction. When tag is run, we're talking about knowledge. There needs to be a justification. There's a set of preconditions for knowledge to be possible. The set of preconditions is the thing we're asking the alternative view. How do you justify the preconditions for knowledge? Obviously, there's a slew of things that need to be the case before you gain any sense of knowledge about anything. So what justifies those things? We would say, well, obviously, from a Christian view, God, Christ, the Logos, not just any God, the triune Godhead, and that truth is a person, and revelation makes knowledge possible, as opposed to you build it. If you build it, we will think.
But let's assume that sometime in the distant future, we have fundamental control over the forces of nature. Gravity. We can control gravity. We can control the elements, like those fundamental forces of nature. A spaceship stops to look like a spaceship at some point, and it might start to look like something like a small planet. Like if you can control gravity and the forces of nature to the point where you can create whatever you want, if you were to create a spaceship or an environment to go into space with,
this guy lost the plot. Gravity, like you can manipulate like elements, like magnetism, electricity, heat, even weather. You can manipulate things, right? But you need access to the thing you're manipulating. This is what bothers me about how people talk about gravity, and he's doing it in here. He's still talking about gravity as if it's something you have access to, then you can manipulate it. Like, turn on the gravity machine and print me a pew-pew. Well, no, the thing they call gravity, which they habitually juggle between the effect and the cause. Oh, it's the effect and the cause. Oh, it's both. It's a theory and a proposition. It's a this and a that. To have to say use a thing to do a thing, you need access to the thing, and you're like, well, what's the thing? Gravity. What's gravity? What's the effect? They always point to the effect. Jim Bob, my chemicals comport with reality. Jim Bob.
It might start to look a lot like a small planet or a moon. That's not a moon. Or a moon than it would a spaceship. Something that can contain an atmosphere. Something that has its own gravity. Like it's like this projection of technology way into the future. Right. But that's what it starts to look more organic. It swings back around from like these composite materials to organic materials, and maybe that's what things start to look like. So again, in that vastness of space and that the distance of time across billions of years.
What you mean? Tools are created accidentally to not accomplish random happenstances that require tools that aren't really tools because tools entail purpose. Which argument? Are you responding to another person? Someone else?
Who's to say that the moon wasn't like created and flown here and put in place?
There is no mind-independent reality. Well, I mean, you could get us to agree with that, but the problem is, you're now leaning toward Christianity. I don't know if you know that, Cam Bam. Now I forget. Are you a theist or are you an atheist? Because in a sense, we would agree that reality does require mind, but we would part ways if you said required a human mind. No. In fact, it's easy to refute that from the view that mind is only isolated to humans. From the evolutionary perspective or any other perspective that denied creation, humans would arrive later on the scene. And for them to arrive on the scene, there has to be a reality that precedes humans. So for you to exist even, Cam Bam, there was a reality before you existed. So that's not even true for you. So now you have to create the first human that was always there with reality. Interesting. You're almost there. It's just not a human. It's not an ordinary human.
Place to like support, like, hey, this planet's in the right zone. Let's give it the thing that it needs to create life, and we'll squirt some DNA at it.
Mind is not exclusive to the Christian doctrine. Well, that's an assertion. You can't defend that. You can't tell us what that is from any other view other than a Christian view. You're just asserting that. It's a giant nope.
Right. And then, billion years later, here we are.
Also, you totally dodged what I just said, dude. You switched over to a new assertion. Let's stick with the one. You just said, what did you say? You said reality. You said this. There is no mind-independent reality. It's incoherent. Right. So you have to hold that there's no distant past that happened. You deny a history. You deny a past. If what you mean by mind means a human mind in particular, you just denied a past. There's no past. Reality started when you started. Solipsism. Then you moved over to mind is not exclusive to the Christian doctrine. Well, no, coherently it is. You can actually use the word mind if you want, but that's not what's in question, dude. That's not what's in question. You have to make sense of mind. You can't just use the term. JB, can an E chord in standard tuning ever not sound like an E chord from the atheist view? Yes. You could move, you can change the air and the nature of, a vacuum or something, and you could probably tweak an E chord even from a non-atheist view. Because the E chord needs to pass through air and perturbate to the ear. So certainly you could probably manipulate, there's nothing logically problematic, I don't think, about that, about the tweaking of particular sound frequencies, given that the frequencies we hear are dependent on the very specific state of the environment we're in, at least theoretically. When they talk about gravity, one would think it's something magnetic. Yeah. They treat it like it's like a action from a distance, something manipulating something else.
Right. I don't know. It's you can't rule it out, and it's an interesting thing to think about. And I think with the moon, it almost becomes a more likely scenario than the current scenario of like, well, there's double big whack.
It's like
thing.
If I can the mind leads to Christianity? No, I didn't say it. Did I say it leads to? No. If I said that, I'll correct myself. No, I'm saying Christianity just can justify the mind, not the mind leads to Christianity. That might be true that the mind can lead to coming to a Christian view. We're talking about metaphysics. Christian metaphysics is the only view that can justify and make sense coherently, holistically as a worldview, the mind. Why would the mind necessarily have an ontic relation to Christ? Well, the mind would need to have a source, first of all. Our minds would need a source, and then if our minds are reflective of the source in a coherent way, then they'd be reflective of a source that has a mind. So the question is, who's the source? The Christian view has an account of the source, has a knowability of the source, has the personhood of the source. What other view does, Cam Bam? You tell me. Otherwise, you're going to be a nominalist, Cam Bam, and you're going to say each mind is uniquely itself and not reflective of any other mind. In fact, the universality of the term mind, Cam Bam, doesn't even exist. So that's another part of Christianity that alternative views, including naturalism, cannot deal with, which is how do you unify the multiplicity of particulars? You're using the word mind, and yet, from your own view, how are you going to universalize that? I mean, surely you probably think we evolved too, which makes it laughable. If you deny a divine mind and it's necessary for reality, I think you actually just have to bite the bullet that your position entails flattening time to a single point on present. Yeah, I mean, that might be identical, Cha, to nominalism. There's no unifying there's nothing that's unifying the one and many things. Nothing. There's nothing that justifies the universality of anything, including a mind, including how reality operates, unified multiplicity. It's intelligible, and it has endless fractals of functionality. Endless. I don't think we'll ever. You know, people say you can't see all of Rome, right, in your lifetime. It's kind of like that. Yeah, nominalism, blah. Exactly. The thing is, there's not many worldviews, Cam Bam. That's what I'm trying to say. There's not many worldviews. There's not many starting points. There's not many views or philosophies of mind that can actually be up to par. I would love to see him a panpsychist. That would be funny. Yeah, that could be pretty funny.
Is that what you just said? Is it more probable that that's what happened, or is it more probable that we are just a flame in a never-ending sea of darkness?
Wow. That might be a stream deck asset. Did logic, rationality, intuition, and all the other facets of minds predate the resurrection? They did. Christ is not the linchpin for a mind. Christ is eternal, you butthead. At least learn what you're critiquing, dude. You get the full song. You get the full song for that.
What would you say if I told you I was mentally retarded?
I just get so mad! I just get so mad! I just get so mad!
Man, if I had a ruler, I would slap your hand so hard. I would slap your hand with a ruler so... Yeah, pig snake. Come on, man. So that was, you know, Cam Bam, you've been here for a couple months at least. That was disappointing. I mean, that was just disappointing. L's in the chat, everybody. Right angles everywhere. Hey, JB, doesn't psychology and psychiatry depend on materialism, physicalism? Anytime I see them talk, it sounds like it. And if that's the case, doesn't it make the entire practice basically? Yeah, it is. Yeah, it does.
Cool it with the anti-Semitic remark.
He didn't even say anything. Yeah. Psychology is a massive cope. It just inverts like confession. It tries to materialize your problems. There's no spiritual problem under psychiatry and psychotherapy and all of that. No, it's not a spiritual problem. In fact, I'm watching this show that's not even that good. It's got Jason Segel and Harrison Ford, and they're shrinks, and the premise is kind of like he's a mess, which is, you know, this juxtaposition of him helping people and he himself is a total mess. And he takes this approach that's completely antithetical to all of its theory, which is like you stay impartial about things. Like there's a bit of a truth bomb in it where it's like, no, you're just impartial. You don't say to leave, you know, to end this relationship. You don't say to do the thing. You don't say go do this. There's no prescriptives ultimately other than take these pills perhaps. And then he flips the script and he just starts getting really hyper involved and doing all of these things that you would ultimately get fired for and lose your license for. And the irony is you would lose your license in the practice of psychotherapy and psychology and psychiatry if you do the right thing that a father would do, that someone who's invested in society would do, in a good society. You would actually do the opposite of these people. You wouldn't take a neutral position. You would get into life. You would You would you would intervene like a parent does. But everyone's like, no, I don't want to mess your stuff. I mean, take your pills and drugs. It'll work out, hopefully, maybe. I don't know, probably not. It's not a spiritual issue though. It's just a brain issue. Don't worry about it. Yeah, so yeah, you're right. Totally materialism. Oh yeah, no, it sucks. It totally sucks. But what can I say? There's not a lot of things to watch. There's nothing to watch, dude. There's nothing good.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we're that.
Yeah.
I don't think we're that. I don't think we're there. I'm fairly convinced that in terms of life, I think we've sort of, although we don't have evidence for it directly, but mathematically, I think we've proven that for sure the conditions for life exist in lots of places. Like the Kepler missions pretty much ended that story. Like,
I like to show JB the hidden truth is relationship is the solution. Irony is the relationship to Christ is the key to long-lasting change. Yeah, and I would say the relationship to Christ, Jeremy, I don't know your background, would be grafting yourself into the body of his church and this practice, the sacraments, and all of that's included in that relationship. The answer is nope. What? The answer what is nope? No. What question? A lot of questions there. Can we not say it isn't a spiritual problem in some cases? I want to say ultimately no. From my view, that there's always going to be a component. I could say that there's smaller components maybe, where things could be sort of like seemingly neutral, like what to eat. But even that, you could actually process something as meaningless, seemingly meaningless, as like eating or going somewhere through a Christian lens, and it would have a spiritual entailment or consequence or something like this, So I don't think so. I would lean no. I would lean no. I saw an advertisement for a prescription that reduces facial twitching caused by too many psychotic dude, it's just amazing. It's like parody. It's parody. Tucker's newest show is about Christians rebuilding the Third Temple. Horrific. These Zio Darby-tards, these Ted Cruzes, the worst. They're not only atheist makers, but they're heretical goblins. They're going to work with the rabbinical Jews. They're going to work with, what do you call, Kufi? They're going to work and usher in the red heifer. It's disgusting, man. Disgusting. It's a lot, though, Jeremy. I might have to, you know what? I might have to specialize that one so I can have a tucky face, thumbnail. I have to pick and choose now. You know what I mean? Is creation a better paradigm than naturalism? The answer is nope. You could even elaborate if one claim that would be incredibly stupid claim. Yeah, that's an assertion. But the thing is, as we've established, Breakfast Tacos, is a paradigm has no justification under naturalism itself. Better has no standard either under naturalism. In fact, the term better doesn't exist under naturalism. How could something be better under naturalism if naturalism can't even justify better or paradigm? How could that possibly make sense? In fact, there could be other anti-Christian views that would be more coherent than naturalism. What's better? It literally has no definition. There's nothing there. You can't even establish the term. Claims. Look, you guys, everybody, look at the words. Claims. Claims don't exist under naturalism. Propositions don't have any ontology under naturalism. There's no distinction between a proposition or claim and anything else that's happening in the world. No categorical distinction. Explanations themselves, Breakfast Tacos. I'm sorry. Facts, explanations, where are these under naturalism? No justification. This is why there's no arguments. There's assertions, but if you watched any of the streams, I can knock down naturalism to non-existence. It just doesn't even, it has no real meaningful roots. It can't even grow anything. There's no ortho church anywhere near me. What should I do? Move. What can I say, Redfish? That sounds brutal, but that's the answer. How would you deal with the deep brain stimulation stuff? Did you mean stimulation or simulation? I'm not sure I quite know or counter it, but when a materialist brings up this as proof for the mind being physical, no, that's nothing. I've run into it many times. What they do is they tickle the sac of the brain and they get a neurological boner. And then they put the neurological boner on a screen and then they're like, look, there's the mind. That's all they got. That's all they do. I mean, it's a simple argument that none of them refute, right? If this view is true and only nature exists and only physical things, material exist, then the mind itself wouldn't necessarily be material. And if it was material, it'd be nominal and it would be an event. And you couldn't trust an event to be true or false. You can't trust an event to be true or false. It's really simple. Events are not truth apt. Under the materialist paradigm, the thing that they're relying on to organize conceptually and describe and explain these events outside of the mind, outside of the brain, those things inside are events too, chemical events. And then they go, no, you guys, chemical events, mine are more true than yours. That's like an insane person. That would be an insane person. If there was a guy walking down the street and he said, my chemical reactions are truer than yours, you would be like, we're going to lock you up. We're going to lock you up. Every time I press you on the role of Christ in the explanatory functions of rationality, you run scared. What are you talking about? You embarrassed yourself, Cam Bam, when you said, what do you mean? Christ was born. You didn't even know that from the Christian view, Christ is eternally uncreated before creation. You didn't even know that. So why would I listen to you pressing me on the role of Christ, dude? It's a joke, man. You should be ashamed of yourself. You know? That's a claim? No, it's my... do you know what an internal critique is? You're all over the freaking place, man. If you're going to critique someone's view, there's two things you're going to do. You're either going to internally critique their view and go, okay, under your model, how does this justify? How does Christ's existence, how does the logi explain from your paradigm, rationality, reason, logic, thinking, knowledge, all this, right? That's one thing you're going to do, right? Instead, you go external. It's a pain in the ass, dude. Pick a lane. What happened? I had to put them on private because once I realized YouTube flags even the simplest outline of a toy, pew pew, and I know that the introduction of many of our skits might have included that. I have to private it and go through them, unfortunately. So, and the, OrthoThugs is under my account. So, it's unfortunate, but that's the reality. We'll probably just put them up on a website, honestly. I feel like we're at that point where it's like, if we're going to rely on YouTube, these, psychopathic clankers, they're not even humans. It's probably a good idea to start uploading these like seasons, things like that, up to an actual page. Constantine and Destiny. I just can't watch them right now. I'm gonna have to save it, Jeremy. Like I told you guys before, if I review Destiny, I'm gonna have to like make a cartoon head of him where I can switch to it and like impersonate him. It's the only way. That's the only way I can do it. Wartime censorship, probably. Probably. But don't worry, we always do more. We do one tomorrow. So, you know, keep up with the existing one. We'll go back and try to go through. You know, I just did it in an emergency because I've been through this before and it's horrible. It's horrible for everyone. It's horrible for me. It's horrible for you guys. You got to scramble and do all these alternative things. It's terrible. Destiny's lower jaw is literally on a swivel. Yeah. Yeah, we should do a DVD. That would be funny. Force people to buy like Blu-ray and things. 2 more, 5 minutes, y'all. 2 more. It's too hard, dude. And I'm someone who's pretty. I've got some strong skin insofar as viewing insufferable people. Yeah, maybe we'll just upload it all to Rumble. That's what we'll do. That's what we're gonna do. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna push it all over. YouTube is not gonna give us any favors anyway. Who are we kidding? Who are we kidding? We'll just put skits up, right? We'll do OrthoThugs Live on YouTube. We'll download it. We'll put it all over to something else. Maybe not even like Rumble. Honestly, Rumble's so. I mean, am I streaming on Rumble? Rumble sucks. I think Kick might be promising. I'm not sure. I could be really wrong about that. Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, they got wrecked. Well, was it Sorum or he called into the other dudes? He got completely annihilated. He called into Mike Jones and who's the other dude? Adrian? What's his name? Logic. God Logic. They did a stream and he called in. He got completely obliterated. Two more, 4 minutes, y'all. The culture, everything sucks over there. This is how it works, how it operates. It cuts your streaming. I lost the last stream on Rumble. Their chats, the whole thing sucks, dude. I hate it. It's also, it's all going to be owned by psychos. It's like we're like, what's the variety of psychos? I was watching yesterday's stream back last night at the gym. I had to stop listening. Book hair jokes, mid bench press, not safe. Oh yeah, the book hair is funny, dude. I'm simply asking why mind can't be presupposed as self-evident. That's circular. And by the way, there's nothing self-evident. No, what's self-evident? Tell me one thing that you think is self-evident, please. That's circular. The thing you're assuming, self-evident would be an arrival point of assuming the mind. Right? You presuppose the mind that it's self-evident, the thing that you need the mind for to produce. The mind needs to exist. That needs to be a necessary component for you to have self-evident anything. But there's no such thing as self-evident. So that's why you can't. There's not one thing that's self-evidently true that you can argue is self-evidently true. So that's probably why you're having trouble here. Suzanne, thank you so much. JB Play Re9. What is that? What is that? RE9? If there's 9 of something, it's already questionable. What is it? I'm a boomer. I don't know a lot of things. Here's your pennies while the nasty little Gibbons takes your dollars. Yeah, they do. Someone just tell me what that is. I was tempted to download this game called Burling Gnomes. It's probably demonic somehow, of course. They always slip in really crazy, weird stuff, and you're like, what the hell? The hell was that? Shameless plug, but I'm debating Kurt on this very topic tomorrow. Mega Blood Blath. 8 p.m. Need folks to contribute. Thank you, Eli. Good luck with that. That's like a walking the dog that doesn't want to pee. Kurt. Reality is self-evident? No. That's not how this works. Reality is self-evident. Really? Really? And how did you determine that? Can you walk us through, Cam Bam, the mechanisms?
You don't get to ask those questions.
How did you determine reality was self-evident? Did that require a certain slew of events? Reality's not defined, but it's self-evident. Unbelievable, you people. You should be, yeah, honestly. If I was king, Cam Bam, if I was king, I would need so much spiritual work if I was a king. I would, the level of healing and confession, the level of humility, the level of fasting required just for me, unheard of. Can you respond to my last chat? Do you think it could or is spiritual? Where is it? You might have to write it again. It's really hard to sift through chats, especially... Oh, there we go. Really struggle with university and stuff. Based on psychology that have been researched, it's clearly I have got high neuroticism and executive dysfunction, which I did experience effects of all of life. Well, whatever dysfunction you have, I would hold that you would want to at least pursue a view that didn't reduce it to just brain. Now, I'm not denying that brain function can influence these things, but the remedy of things that I've seen anyway, right, only focus on the material. And if you only focus on the material, I don't think you get any healing anyway. So I can't give you any recommendation insofar as, the nature of your brain and its activity. But what I can do is tell you to go to liturgy and at least have on your Sundays something you can go into that is not worldly, not based in materialism. Something that could give you something as an experience, as a remedy that's aiding another part of your reality that's not strictly your body, but includes your body. So I would go from there. Go to divine liturgy. If you're at university, you're probably somewhere at least populated that it's likely that a Eastern Orthodox church is near you. Did he respond? I wanted to know from Cam Bam. There's no evidence. No, evidence requires a set of methodologies to interpret. You didn't answer my question, Cam Bam. I asked you. You said reality is self-evident. I said, how did you determine that? What I got from you is another claim instead of an answer to my question. You said reality is self-evident. What's the methodology you use to determine something's, quote, self-evident? Other topics? It depends on the topics. Honestly, the more I move along, the more I'm geared toward making stuff. I want to make like a movie. I want to make more shorts. I want to do more music. I want to make more animations. I want to make more things. Debating's awesome. Depending on the topic, I would say I'm okay at it. But there's so much more that I could offer than debating that I'm not really, especially during Lent for sure, but I'm not like focused on it. You know, and I don't wake up. There's not any part of my day where I'm suddenly thinking, oh, I just want to debate someone right now. But what I do get is I just want to make something. I want to make something funny. I want to make something poignant. I want to make something touching and moving. I want to make something beautiful. That's where I'm at. So like, I think that debating is like one aspect of what I do, but it's like on the lower shelves. It's just on a lower shelf. Nobody has anything to add in the chat. We're still waiting on you, dude. How did you determine something self-evident? And no, don't use a snarky, pithy. Don't back out, you little bitch. People, man, you disgust me. Under your epistemology, how did you determine something self-evident? You're like, revelation. Ha ha, Christians. Just answer the question, dude, like a grown man. Little fucking pig. Hate you people. I give you so much grace, and then you're just like, I'm a little kid. I'm not going to answer. Fucking little goblin. Fucking hell, man. I'm literally trying to, in good faith, ask you your methodology. You little shit. Well, reality is revealed. Okay, cool. Necessity, what is it revealed from? That needs a source. It's no longer self-evident. You just refuted yourself, goblin. If reality is revealed, then it has a source. It can't be self-evident. It's not in itself evident. It has to be revealed. Fucking sophist. You little greasy, grimy gecko. He's digging a safe hole because he knows if he uses the word revelation, even though it's completely meaningless from his view, then you can't critique it because ultimately the Christian view, revelation is the beginning of all knowledge. You know, that's the mechanism. Science and all this other stuff is secondary. But he has no way to use it, and it's a contradiction because if you appeal to revelation, you've just externalized a source for knowledge and all of these things, so it's no longer self. It's no longer, he doesn't care, though. We keep pretending that these people care what they're talking about. What necessitates a source? That it's revealed to you. That means it pre-existed. If it's something existed before you gathered it, that means it wasn't self-evident. You had to identify it. You had to receive it. So it wasn't self-evident. It's just a waste of time. This is why debating is useless for a lot of reasons. It's not always useless, but especially during Lent, you get all the confused people with their demons attached. And they find you. They just find you. They're like, just like breathing under the bed. Revealed to who? Yeah, revealed to who? You? To him? You can't justify the self. Yeah, none of it. You have to say the self is self-evident. It just makes no sense. It's like, what makes sense is they push toward revelation. That makes sense. But what makes... they don't think holistically, like a full worldview. They think in parts, just tiny parts. You're saying you can't arrive at all Christian theology a priori? So you're saying you can't arrive at all Christian theology a priori? Well, I mean, you could say some a priori things just for the sake of conversation, like space-time matter. But that wouldn't say like that wouldn't it wouldn't get you to a place where you didn't have to justify what like reality is. So I'm not sure. I think I'm understanding your question correctly. Things that are not based on experience or the sense, from our Christian worldview, we could actually examine that from noetic faculties. Types of knowledge that could be known without the understanding or fullness of sense data. Usually I use the example of like infants or even children in the womb, where they don't really have access to meaningful distinctions between things. But there's some notional or noetic, in our view, noetic knowledge of things, even without the sense data apparatus developed or even understood, even the knowledge that you're understanding and evaluating sense data before any of that. But like things like that necessarily need to be the case before you can even do experiential sense data evaluations. Just because they're necessary to exist before you start doing those things, it doesn't give a justification for them. But none of that is self-evident, though. That's the point, Mega Bloodbath. None of it is self-evident. For this reason here. Atomic structures are not self-evident, but they hold us together in reality. There's nothing self-evident. That's the thing. You ask one of these people who use this language, name one thing that's self-evident. They say reality is. And no. Nope. That's a giant nope. Nope. That requires mind. That requires some conclusion about what you're perceiving to call it a metaphysical term. By the way, reality is a metaphysical term. It doesn't even tell you what it is. Unless you're Tom Jump, of course. You say reality is reality, right? Ma revelation. Well, you don't have an alternative. Just saying ma revelation as a counter, like you got defeated, dude. Bonson and Ventil claims to be able... Wait, they personally... Well, Bonson was a Calvinist, so I don't really... Aside from his critiques against physicalism, and I don't really listen to his theology. So, I mean, the idea that Bonson holds that you can come to Christian theology a priori is funny, considering that he has no ultimately control from his Calvinist view of coming to knowledge anyway. He's ultimately a God puppet. So maybe he ties it to that. Like if it's the case that he's a puppet of God, literally a marionette doll with no will in the matter. And God picks him up like a little puppet and starts playing with him, and ostensibly only through gameplay gives the puppet knowledge, a priori knowledge. Maybe he's thinking in those terms, but we don't care about that. Tacos. We're not going to use Calvinism to speak about or elucidate our theology. For sure, not Calvinism. Axioms are axiomatic, obviously. Did you hear yourself 1 minute prior mocking the exact thing? No. Talking about a priori and a posteriori, talking about that from a specific paradigm, you could make sense of it. But self-evident, no. No, we would reject self-evident. It's not self-evident, dude. You're just you're just a snake. You're a slithery snake. When I mow the weeds that you're in, you move over to other weeds, dude. You're a waste of time. It's just unbelievable how you guys act. It disgusts me. Makes me want to eat a hamburger. It falsifies your position? How? You gotta use full sentences, dude. You guys have this habit. Oh, it falsifies your position. I won't actually say it, but I'll claim it, but I won't give the extra two because... What are you talking about? It doesn't. Doesn't. See, the thing is with these categories of knowledge, like priori, like whether it's analytic, that still requires knowledge about what a bachelor is to come to that truth, to come to that knowledge. And also, even if you took the synthetic approach, you really can't remove experience. So I don't even really approve of the structure of these things. They're just useful to talk about things once you grant a bunch of stuff. But I don't need to grant a bunch of stuff, right? So some of these things are still controversial. Like, ultimately, there's no fact to the matter from any of these purely philosophical views that can give you a self-evident truth. It's not a self-evident truth that all bachelors are unmarried. It's not self-evident. It's not self-evident that every event has a cause. It's not self-evident. All knowledge is theory-laden. And so if it's theory-laden, it's like, sorry, you need processing. That's like saying the meaning of a thing, that object you found, is self-evident. That is to say, the meaning of it is found in the object. That's nonsensical. Welcome to atheism. No. That's an entailment of Western natural theology. Yeah, this is all like classical foundationalism, where you're just like, well, we need a starting point, so we might as well start at the same point the atheists start at. Well, no, this has been a disaster. This is why we're in the pile of garbage we're in the West, insofar as what people claim Christianity is. They just grant themselves all of these things. Silly. Sense, knowledge, and mind was appropriated and deemed proprietary by the Christian religion. You don't know what you're talking about. What's the Christian religion, Cam Bam? You didn't even know that the Christian religion holds that Christ is eternally uncreated, dude. What are you talking about? Nobody's listening to you anymore. You already jumped off of the wagon. In the middle of your loop-de-loo, you've jumped off the roller coaster. Parsimonious? Yeah, also claiming parsimony doesn't tell you why we should be parsimonious at all. It doesn't even matter. You could even grant them parsimony. It doesn't matter. That's just a preference from their view. Oh, I prefer to be parsimonious. Okay. How do you determine what's considered parsimonious and what's not? What's the threshold? Did someone objectively declare that? Oh, you crossed the line. This is no longer parsimonious. It's like, it's totally arbitrary. Do you think that it's self-evident that all men are created equal? No. That's not true. That's not true in the sense, the material sense for sure. Abilities, capabilities, gifts, drawbacks, looks, whatever, size, shape, whatever. Obviously, that's a metaphysical claim. And the use of that term, legally in this case, is trying to borrow a little bit from the Christian worldview. But the thing is, it's not self-evident that all men are created equal. That view, image bearer status, had to be revealed. It's not self-evident. You wouldn't need to, from a Christian view, you wouldn't need revelation if it was self-evident that all men were created equal. So, It's borrowed, right? It's not. You need something to refer to. In other words, when you say created equal, you're already outside of self-evidentialism, because created, you need to have knowledge of this thing that happened. It's not self-evident that we were created. That's why natural theology is bunk. An actual response. Why don't you super chat? If you want this much attention, why don't you pay for the attention, you little queen? I appreciate you give me attention. Shut up. You're like a maggot in the soil with a loud voice somehow. I would appreciate if you give me more. You don't deserve attention. You didn't earn the attention. Actually, in fact, where's my wrenches? Suzanne, 24-hour ban for Cam Bam because he's so needy and he's so entitled. You're out of Jortlandia. You can come knocking at the gates tomorrow after a full day of repentance. Beat it, dork. Oh, you should appreciate more attention in the chat. Shut the fuck up. Crybaby. No, I'm not crybaby. Get out of here. You're needy. You don't pay. You don't add anything. You're like a Yelp reviewer in the stands. You're a heckler. You're a heckler. You got kicked out of the comedy club for heckling. I would appreciate if you looked my way. I would appreciate it. I would really appreciate a response. What are you, on the phone with IKEA? No, you needy goober. You blood-sucking pig snake. Yeah, exactly. Can we ban tacos? No, tacos is just drawing. He's just trying to draw up some viewership for his panels. So, hope he does okay. God bless you. Thank you so much. My time is up for the day. You're in my prayers, and we'll be back tomorrow. Thank you, Josiah. I appreciate you. Cool avatar, by the way. Yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly. It's a failure. I mean, that's weak. That's a weak spot for me. I'm like, oh, someone's talking at me. We might as well. All right, let's look at this actually. Because we're not done yet. We're not done. Let's do this. The hell? Where'd it go? Huh? Why ain't no play? Why ain't no playing? Why ain't no playing? You guys? Why ain't not playing? Why ain't not playing? Is that maybe their mistake? Hold on a second.
We figured out that, all right, there's plenty of...
Did they premiere a video with no audio? That's embarrassing, man. I mean, I would do that. I probably would do that. I mean, I'm not making a judgment, but I think that's what they did. I think they actually messed up big time. Here. Let's make sure.
Hello and welcome.
No.
An argument that God must have an additional property, which is something called omnisubjectivity, which is the ability that God has to cognitively grasp the first-person experience of every cognitive agent. So what that means, in less sort of philosophical terms, is that I
12
God
minutes,
can know
5
various
chats.
things about me, such as Josh is talking now. But there's a difference between the fact or the third person fact that Josh is talking now and my own first person experience of talking. The way in which I'm seeing the colors, hearing the sounds in front of me, that's very different from someone who's an outsider describing my sort of talking event. And so what she says is that if God is to be cognitively perfect, he can't just have knowledge of propositions. God knows that Josh is doing this, Josh will do that, Josh has done this in the past, he'll do this he's doing this in the present and then do something in the future. God has all of that knowledge. But then she says, well, if God is to be cognitively perfect, he also has to have a cognitive grasp of our own first person perspectives. He needs to know what it is to be like Josh when I'm experiencing certain things throughout my life. Now, based upon that God has this cognitive grasp of our first person perspectives, so he knows what it's like to be me. I then, in my arguments in the work that I've written on this, I say, well, the cognitive grasp that God has is of all of our conscious states. So God has a cognitive grasp of my beliefs. He has a cognitive grasp of my desires, my thoughts, my willings. So he has a cognitive grasp of all those conscious states. But there's another thing that God has. God has a cognitive grasp of my emotions. Now, in the literature on emotions, so within philosophy, there's a study that people do of the sort of the philosophy of emotions and trying to understand what is the nature of an emotion. And
this guy's dressed for the hide and seek world championships. I'm just waiting for him to talk about soccer for some reason. I don't know why.
In the literature, one of the prevalent views is that an emotion is a perception of a bodily change.
Wouldn't that still be... when you get into talking about this stuff, honestly, this is probably beyond me. But you're always going to get language that's limited and ultimately not analogous, but limited because it's analogy. Things like cognitive, like I would already be like, I'm kind of already out because I understand that you have to grant a type of word that can't ultimately match what you're talking about when it comes to God's nature and mind. But even the term cognitive is already, to me, like a type of red flag, a little bit.
Change. What that means is that we have emotions.
Thank you so much.
Emotions are just the way in which we perceive.
Thank you for paying for the atheist, yes.
So just sort of, and I can unpack this later in the discussion, but taking into account God's omnisubjectivity, so his cognitive grasp of all of our conscious states, which
see, that's already out. That's already in the world of created cognition. Grasping, intaking, input. This is already outside of they're placeholder words, but I'm trying to be charitable, but also like a little bit rigorous here. It's still a bit. I'm not deep enough into this particular topic to convey it. Someone like Chase Haggard would do a good job here, but I know right off the bat that's like, if you present God as grasping external things, knowledge, data, and filtering it, you're already sort of perverting it a little bit. But if it's for the sake to make like a point, you just have to be clear that it's ultimately disanalogous, but you're doing it for the sake of placeholders, words. But I don't know about this. Take my money, you philosophical nerd. Thank you so much for that. I will. And 7 minutes, 3 left. Thank you so much. What is it, 2 p.m. almost?
Include our emotions. And then take into account that an emotion is a perception of a bodily state. And that means that anyone who has an emotion must have a body. Then if God is to be subjective, then he must also cognitively grasp our emotions, but that entails him having a body. So God must have a body in order to be omnisubjective, so he can be able to cognitively grasp the emotions of all cognitive agents that exist. So God must, at some point, take on a body in order to then be omnisubjective. So the way...
I'm just going to say I don't know. There's something intuitively that says no. Like all of my intuition is saying no. So it's almost like I need someone else to review this. You seen the Marine getting his arm broke? No. Probably. I usually save my arm breaking videos for late night before I go to bed, Christian. You know, like right before bed. What it's like, questioners never question the legitimacy of the analogy of the basic level of, say, consciousness or personhood. Eli Nick says $5. Buckaroos says, I'm curious your take on Taco's claim that tag arguments we can come to all Christian theology a priori. It's just a claim. He doesn't tell me in the argument, right? It's just a claim. Like, you can't even use the term Christian without revelation, so it doesn't make any sense. How could you come a priori to the nature and the revealed life of Christ and the defeating of death? And how do you come to Christ being the Messiah without, how could that be self-evident? Without the prophets, how could you have a self-evident coming Messiah to trample death? It's just all empty claims. That's what it is. That's what it is, Eli. It's just empty. It's always referencing something that you have knowledge of. It's like Mormonism. It's like, oh no, Mormonism is true, and we know this because Joseph Smith, who needed all of the Christian revelation. Same thing with the Sand Mormons. They need to rely on Christian revelation to have knowledge of Christ and this entire paradigm. It couldn't be a priori self-evident or anything else. Because you need a referent. That's why.
The way that I argue for this is...
Ask Bryce. Yeah. I think Bryce will probably... I'm sure he will.
Priori. Because I'm not saying based upon reading anything or any historical analysis. I'm saying just based upon the nature of God, him being cognitively perfect, thus him being omnisubjective, and thus cognitively grasping emotions, he will thus then require a body and thus assume a body and become incarnate. So then that leads to the incarnation.
And can I just ask one clarifying question? Which
yes,
is,
of course.
Why?
Do you also collect Legos? Because I've got a Starship. I've got a Millennium Falcon. Do you also? I don't want to make any judgment on you, but it seems like you're someone who might have perhaps some Legos I'd be interested in. When you collect Legos, are they black? Are they Legos of colour? Do you ever wear a wig?
Is it that God needs to take on one particular body as opposed to taking on all bodies? Because you use this term omni.
This is granting himself everything. Yeah, I don't know about this guy. I actually never really watched this Solowati guy. I always thought he was a soccer player. Thank you, Austin Titilio. Buonasera, señorita. Your British getting better. God doesn't need a brolly. He already understands what it's like to be in the rain and not in the rain at the same time. God's Brolly is a book that I'm coming out with. In the book, God's Brolly, what I try to elucidate is that God both provides the brolly to us, but also is a brolly. He's his own brolly. Okay. Is it raining? I said goal right when I said soccer. You mean football? Russell off-brand. Well, I mean, you guys... I can't. Bloody eel. Me mum's a lampshade. Me mum's a lampshade. Can't. Maybe it's the accent. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just discriminatory. Maybe that's what it is. Well, you should put your brolly. You should pump a brolly on time. Is he? I mean, I'm sorry. Maybe it is. Look, it's out of my wheelhouse. It just seemed that what he was saying had some problems. I don't know that. I don't know that. And sometimes Orthodox people, get on a stage and say things all the time. I mean, I don't know. I'm going to leave that to someone else, Dustin, honestly. I am not in the position. I don't have the wherewithal. I don't have the knowledge. I don't have the study. It just occurred to me something was, I don't know. But I don't know. Maybe he's just doing it for, like, he's using the language for the sake of the schema. It just seemed, I don't know. It seemed, that's what it seemed like. It almost sounded, I don't know. I could be totally wrong on this. I'm sure people who review that, they'll give a way better take than me. So just don't even take this seriously. It sounded like almost natural theology kind of sneaking in, okay? That's all. I'll just leave it at that. It just felt like it occurred. There was like a break in the wall, and there was this little watery natural theology leaking in, okay? I could be wrong. My mum and dad in the hallway. Speaking of the perspective of God outside time, like how Christ was crucified before the foundation of earth, he also had a body. Yeah, I understand. No, his conclusions, like what he's saying, it makes sense. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it was. It just could be today for me. You know what I mean? I'm just feeling funky. My pa was killed by stoning. It's out of my wheelhouse anyway. I'm not as studied as Marty Leeds yet, so I've got a lot of work to do, okay? What is it, mate? What is it, bit of ours? Here, kick the ball. Give it around. Yeah, no problem, dude. I don't know. I don't know. What do I know? What is the accent? What do you mean? It's totally just basic British. Such basic British. Well, if you want help how to do British accent, you just put your mangled teeth out there, and you place them out there. You just pretend your teeth are a bunch of twin towers falling. Like what your mouth is a mangled city. Speak with your teeth. This is me every day here in England. I can't even have a knife. Well, look who is going to be streaming a chill stream. None other than Andrew Wilson. 2 o'clock. How appropriate. That's in 2 minutes. I guess I know where all of you are going anyway. Might as well end it now. Before he takes every viewer on the internet. Might as well get you on over there right now. Gonna take him anyway. He's gonna take you anyway. Gonna take you anyway. Gonna take you away. The glottal stops. I can't. Dude, it's the impossible accent. There's people who do it so good, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like there's a code. There's a code to it. I'm just too lazy to look it up. It's like you have to get all the sounds right. You have to remove all of the sounds that they don't make and that you currently make, and then there's a chance. But I have a lot of fun doing it the other way, where I don't discover the proper sounds, and I just try feeling out. It's a bit of a feeling. I just try to be like a rat creature in Harry Potter. And for some reason, that's always British. I even look like it, don't I? Look like a Harry Potter rat. What are you going to do? Please, lift the curse. I don't want to be crawling around in the gully. Forever. Forever. How do they say forever? Someone write it out. Someone write it out in the chat. How does a British say forever? I don't want to be on the ground. My gum's infected. My gum's infected. I don't want to be eating cheese for a long time. Forever. Don't want to be eating cheese forever. Forever. Look at the chat. That's hilarious. If someone came over to my chat right now, they'd be like, "What? Please, don't want to be on the ground forever." Forever. Please. Do me a favour. When you turns me back into a human, can I keep my tail? I want my tail. I want my tail. Give us a smile. Give us a smile. Got a bit of a cough. Give us a super chats. If you like the streams today, give us a super chats like Spins does. Give us a super chats. Y'all go. Give us a super. Give us a bit of a super chats. All right, I'm starting to lose it now. He could have been saying everything correct. Honestly, just don't even listen to anything I said in that section. Okay? Just ignore it. Just wait. It's a bit of a storm that came in over me. It just sounded a bit puzzled and mangled to me. Give us a super chats. This has gone too far. I'm losing it. Give us a super chats. There you go. Christopher Scott. Thank you. Can I have another super chat, Governor? There's another one. There's another. Here's some pounds, Gov. And get myself some porridge and a Scotch egg. I'm getting sick. I'm getting sick from doing British. All right. I've done enough. Thank you so much for your support, everybody. Really appreciate you. See you on Orthothugs tomorrow. May or may not stream during the day. I don't know what's going to happen. Got to talk to Tony today. See if we're making anything happen tomorrow as far as creation. I know we have a little animation. But maybe I'll stream in the morning. I don't know. But as for now, Genesis 1:1 in the original Hebrew, 7 words, 7 days of creation. Bereshit is the beginning. 3 and 1. Hebrew is 3 and 1. There's a hidden phrase about Jesus being sacrificed as a gift. Really? I'll have to look at that. Thank you. Give us a smile. Give us a bit of a smile. Give us a kick. Kick the football. All right, I'm hungry. All right, that's it. That's all I got. I can't do any more anyway. I can barely talk. God bless you. Have fun over at Crucible Land. See you guys tomorrow. Much love. Thank you, everyone, for the support. And if you're listening to this after the case, you can support with a super chat or a Bob chat. Vagine will read it. Maybe. Also, get yourself your stickers. I'm doing one more push for the Ortho stickers here. I'll get some pictures up maybe tomorrow. Give it a couple more days. I'll try to do a run with a shameless goal on the top. Okay, and then those things will be we'll hit the print button on those and get you guys your stickers. Okay, thank you for your patience. Other than that, you guys have a good rest of your day. Okay, God bless you all. Give us a smile.
Jimmy crack corn and I don't really care no more. What he gotta say, it's irrelevant. Once upon a time, could have been a partner of mine. Now he's getting checks from the government. I don't care where your idol stands, protecting his hands from culture jams with the oven. It's another soldier got caught, all ain't what you thought. Nothing here is done for the fun of it. I don't care what you say, I'm on some new shit. I don't care if you're digging what I'm doing. I don't care what you think about my music. I don't care, you're not the reason I do this. Always going. I don't care if I die without you knowing. Tried to catch your eye for a stint until I realized what that meant. Jimmy crack corn and I don't really care no more. What he gotta say, it's irrelevant. Once upon a time, could have been a partner of mine. Now he's getting checks from the government. I don't care where your idol stands, protecting his hands from culture jams with the oven. It's another soldier got caught, on it what you thought. Nothing here is done for the fun of it. I don't care what you say, I'm on some new shit. I don't care if you're digging what I'm doing. I don't care what you think about my music. I don't care, you're not the reason I do this. Always going. I don't care if I die without you knowing. Tried to catch your eye for a stint until I realized what that meant.